Welcome to Revenge with Lyra.
What happens when the people who raised you decide your only value is servitude? That question has been rattling in my chest ever since the night my parents cornered me in the kitchen. The fluorescent light flickered above us, buzzing like an insect trapped in glass. Mom leaned against the counter, arms crossed, a smirk tugging her mouth. Dad stood near the fridge, blocking the way out like a guard dog. "You either move out, or you start helping your sister with the baby," Mom said flatly. "Rent's going up otherwise." My fork froze halfway to my mouth. The pasta had already gone cold, but I forced myself to chew and swallow. "So, you're saying my choices are pay you more or become your free nanny?" Dad didn't even blink. "Exactly. Family comes first. You should be grateful we're giving you an option." Grateful. That word hit harder than the rent hike. Grateful to become unpaid labor in exchange for a roof over my head. Grateful to raise a child that wasn't mine while scraping by with 2 jobs. I laughed. It was sharp, ugly, the kind of laugh that slices a room open. You know what? I am grateful. Because now I see exactly what I'm worth to you. Mom's smile faltered. Dad scowled. My sister, who had been listening from the doorway with her baby on her hip, gave a little triumphant shrug, like she'd already won. I excused myself, pushed back from the table, and walked down the hall as if I were just tired, just heading to bed. My steps were steady, deliberate. But inside, the storm was already breaking. Because that night, I didn't sleep. I packed. Every shirt, every book, every memory I didn't want left behind went into bags and boxes. The house was silent except for the scrape of hangers, the zipping of duffel bags, the thud of my heartbeat in my ears. At dawn, while the baby cried in the other room, I carried everything to my car. One trip after another until the back seat and trunk were bursting. I stood by the car door, the chill morning air biting my skin, and whispered to myself, "This is it. No more chains disguised as family ties." Then I drove away, without looking back. They thought I would bend. They thought I would stay trapped. But what they didn't know was that vanishing was only the first move. Their downfall was coming, and I wouldn't need to lift a finger to make it happen. The first 24 hours after I left, my phone was eerily silent. No calls. No texts. Just the kind of void you'd expect when your absence doesn't register. It stung, but it also told me exactly where I stood in their hierarchy. Expendable. By the second day, though, the silence cracked.
Ding.
A message from Mom. "Where are you? Your sister's exhausted. The baby needs help. Come back." I stared at the screen from my new apartment, a tiny studio barely big enough for a bed and a desk, with peeling wallpaper and a sink that dripped no matter how hard I twisted the knob. But it was mine. Every squeak in the floorboards, every stain on the wall, mine. I didn't reply. By the third day, the call started. Dad first. His tone on voicemail was all thunder. "You think you can just walk out? Rent's due, and if you're not here to pay it, don't bother showing your face again." I deleted it without listening to the rest. But the calls kept coming. Mom alternating between guilt and rage. My sister sending sarcastic messages like, "Hope you're enjoying your freedom. Baby kept me up all night. Thanks for nothing." Thanks for nothing. That one made me laugh bitterly. I had given them everything. My paycheck, my time, my patience. And in their eyes, it still wasn't enough. Meanwhile, their lives began unraveling without me. My cousin messaged me privately. "Your mom's been asking around for babysitters. Nobody wants the job. She doesn't want to pay." Of course she didn't. Why would she, when she'd had me for free? I scrolled through the photos my cousin sent me. My sister looking frazzled at the grocery store, dark circles under her eyes. Dad at a community meeting, complaining loudly about lazy young people who don't know responsibility. I sat in my little studio, eating instant noodles on the floor, and felt something I hadn't in years: peace. Their chaos wasn't mine anymore. Their exhaustion, their bills, their endless demands, not mine. And yet, I knew this was only the beginning. Families like mine don't crumble quietly. They collapse loudly, dragging everyone down with them. So I waited. Every unread message, every ignored call, it was like stacking dominoes. And when they finally toppled, it wouldn't be because of me. It would be because of the weight of their own greed pressing down until everything cracked. By the second week, the tone of their messages shifted. Gone was the anger. Gone was the superiority. What replaced it was something I'd never seen from them before: panic. Mom's texts started filling my phone at odd hours. Your sister can't handle this alone. You're being cruel. Rent is due. You've always helped with bills. How can you abandon us? If family means nothing to you, then don't bother calling yourself my daughter. Each one was a dagger wrapped in desperation. Dad, meanwhile, tried his usual tactics. He left me voicemails dripping with authority, like he still believed he could bark me back into obedience. This is your responsibility. Families sacrifices for each other. You're acting selfish, running away. Selfish. I whispered the word to myself as I folded my laundry on the creaky chair in my studio. Was it selfish to want freedom? To want to live without being used like an unpaid servant? If so, then maybe selfish was the best thing I'd ever been. Meanwhile, their collapse began to ripple outward. My aunt posted on Facebook about how sad it is when parents get no respect from their kids. The comments under it told me everything. People were whispering. People knew. My cousin sent screenshots, and I nearly choked laughing when someone replied, "Respect goes both ways." And then came the call that sealed their fate. It was my grandfather. His voice carried the kind of weight that made even my father shut up at family gatherings. He asked me quietly, almost gently, "Why is your mother telling everyone you abandoned them? What really happened?" I hesitated for only a breath. Then the dam broke. I told him everything. The rent threats, the nanny ultimatum, the way they drained me until I was running on fumes. And when I told him how they treated my worth as nothing but free labor, his silence was louder than any outburst. Finally, he said, "I see." 3 words, heavy as stone. When we hung up, I knew it was over. Because if my grandfather was on my side, the scaffolding of lies my parents had built was about to collapse. I sat back in my chair, the hum of the city outside my window, and smiled. They wanted to make me their servant. Instead, I'd become their reckoning. And the cracks were only beginning to spread. The fallout started sooner than I expected. My grandfather didn't shout, didn't scold. He simply acted. Within days, my parents' world began shifting beneath their feet, like sand slipping away from under a house on stilts. First, he called my father directly. My cousin told me the conversation wasn't long, just 10 minutes. But when it ended, my father stormed out of the house and drove off, slamming the door so hard the windows rattled. My mother trailed after him, shouting his name, but he didn't look back. By the weekend, the whispers had turned into open talk. Extended family members started messaging me privately. "We had no idea. Your mom never mentioned you were paying rent. She told us you refused to help, but now." It was like watching a mask peel away from her face, layer by layer. My sister, though, didn't bother hiding her rage. She called me at 2 a.m., her voice shrill, broken by the baby crying in the background. "This is your fault," she screamed. "Mom's stressed, Dad's furious, and Grandpa's turned on us because of you. Do you know how humiliating this is? Everyone's talking about us." I held the phone to my ear, calm. "No," I whispered. "They're talking about the truth." She cursed at me until her voice cracked, then hung up. For the first time in years, I slept soundly. But it didn't stop there. My grandfather began taking steps to redirect the family's future, as he called it. My cousin said he'd already threatened to cut off the financial help he gave my parents, the same support they'd hidden from me while demanding rent. And suddenly, all those lavish dinners they hosted, the vacations they bragged about on social media, the endless shopping sprees for my sister, gone. They tightened their belts so fast it was visible. My mother showed up at church in a dress she'd worn 2 years ago. My sister stopped posting baby outfits with tags still on them. It was subtle, but clear. Their empire of control was cracking. And the best part? I didn't have to lift a finger. All I did was tell the truth to the one person they couldn't manipulate. The silence on my end was louder than any confrontation could have been. I was done playing their servant. From here on, they would serve the consequences of their own greed. The begging started slowly, like drops of water on stone. At first, it was my mother's texts. "We need to talk. Families shouldn't turn their back on each other. You don't understand the stress your sister is under. Don't punish her child for our mistakes. Be reasonable.
Come home.
Help us." Each message carried less venom, more desperation. Then came my father. He never apologized, not once in my entire life. But now his voice cracked through a voicemail. I may have been harsh. Things were difficult. You know how family is. But we can work this out. Just come back. I played it twice, not out of softness, but disbelief. The man who once demanded I pay rent just to breathe under his roof now wanted to work things out?
No.
My silence was their answer. And silence, I realized, was more powerful than any revenge plan. It forced them to sit with their own choices, echoing louder with every passing day. I didn't respond. By the end of the month, my cousin told me my grandfather had cut off every cent he'd been sending them. "If you treat your own daughter like a servant," he told them, "don't expect me to fund your cruelty." That single sentence rippled like an earthquake. Without his money, their mortgage payments loomed heavy. The rent they'd once demanded from me was now demanded from them by the bank. My sister's nanny search went nowhere, and now she was home every day, exhausted, posting cryptic complaints online about how people abandon you when you need them most. Meanwhile, I picked up extra shifts, not out of necessity but because for the first time, the money I made was mine. No rent to hand over, no guilt trip attached, no threats looming overhead. I bought myself small luxuries, a fresh coffee each morning, a pair of shoes I'd been eyeing for months, a ticket to a local concert. Each purchase whispered freedom in my ear. And then the inevitable happened. My sister called again. This time, she didn't scream. She begged. Her voice was thin, almost hollow. "Please," she whispered, "just a few weeks. Mom and Dad can't handle this. The baby's sick, and I don't have enough for medicine. If you don't help, I don't know what we'll do." I stared at my phone, the weight of her words pressing against me. But then I remembered every night I came home from my double shifts, exhausted, only to find them laughing in the living room, demanding more from me. And suddenly, my choice was clear. I didn't answer her call. Instead, I let the voicemail play out in silence, her voice cracking, a baby crying in the background. Then I deleted it. Because I remembered. I remembered standing in that kitchen while my mom told me I owed her rent, even as she pocketed my entire paycheck. I remembered how my father smirked while I scrubbed dishes after a 12-hour shift, saying, "You're lucky we let you stay here at all." I remembered my sister tossing her hair, smirking, telling me I was too uptight whenever I begged for just a little help. Now, they wanted me to swoop in and save them?
No.
Their downfall wasn't my punishment. It was their reflection. That week, I made my choice louder. I posted photos online, my new apartment small but mine. A graduation photo of me holding my degree, paid in blood and sweat, with a caption, "Every dollar I earn now is mine." Freedom tastes better when no one is holding you hostage. The comments rolled in. Friends cheered me on. Extended family members chimed in with love. My grandfather himself left a single, devastating reply under the post. "Proud of you, Rachel. Keep moving forward." My mother saw it. She texted me in all caps. "You're trying to humiliate us. How could you do this to your own family?" I didn't reply, because it wasn't me doing this to them. It was them, choosing greed over love, control over compassion, manipulation over honesty. By the end of that month, their world was unraveling in plain sight. Their house went on the market. My father picked up late-night shifts at a warehouse. My sister posted desperate crowdfunding links for her baby's bills. Each post was a reminder. This was the life they had built, brick by brick, out of lies, selfishness, and cruelty.
And as for me?
I wasn't cruel. I didn't mock. I didn't gloat. I simply didn't show up. That silence, that absence, echoed louder than any revenge speech I could have delivered. And deep down, I think they finally understood. I was no longer theirs to control. I was gone, and with me went the one thing they'd always underestimated: their supply of free labor, free money, and unconditional loyalty. That was their collapse. And my beginning. The last attempt came in public. It was a Sunday afternoon at the grocery store, my safe little ritual, headphones in, cart half full, finally breathing easy. Then I felt it, that sharp, unmistakable presence behind me. Rachel. I froze, hand still on a box of cereal. I didn't have to turn. My mother's perfume, heavy, floral, suffocating, reached me before her voice did. And then my father, his shadow blocking the aisle. People stared. A couple pushing a stroller slowed down, sensing tension. My mother's smile was thin, stretched too tight, as if she could pretend this was some happy reunion. "We just want to talk," she said, voice pitched sweet but trembling. My father added, "You've made your point. Now stop this nonsense and come home. We can work something out." The words "come home" hit like a hammer, not an invitation, but a command. The same command they'd been using my whole life. I let the silence linger. Then I asked, loud enough for the aisle to hear, "Work something out? Like when you stole $60,000 of my future? Like when you tried to make me a free nanny, charging me rent while I raised your grandchild for nothing? Or maybe you mean when you called me worthless for saying no?" My father's jaw tightened. My mother's eyes darted to the strangers watching. A cashier leaned over to see. The humiliation they'd always buried inside closed doors was now dragged into fluorescent light. "You don't understand what family means," my mother hissed. I stepped closer, my voice steady, my hands calm.
No, Mom.
"You don't understand. Family doesn't use you. Family doesn't drain you dry and call it love. Family doesn't make survival a debt." The silence after my words was heavier than their shame. They couldn't spin it here, not with witnesses. My father looked away. My mother's lips trembled, but no excuse came. For the first time, they were the ones cornered. I pushed my cart forward, brushing past them. "This conversation is over. Just like us." And with that, I walked out of the store, leaving them standing there, exposed, small, powerless. Later, my cousin texted me. "Word's gotten around. Everyone knows what they did. No one's defending them anymore." The collapse was complete. Their reputation, their pride, their control, all shattered. But for me, it wasn't just revenge. It was the moment I finally understood. My life was no longer theirs to own. I didn't hear from them again for weeks. No calls, no texts, just silence.
Until the letter came.
A cream-colored envelope with my name scrawled in my mother's handwriting. Inside, a single page. No apology. No reflection. Just one line, underlined twice. "You'll regret cutting us off when we're gone." I read it once. Then I folded it neatly and slipped it into the drawer where I keep reminders, not of pain, but of why I chose freedom. Because regret? That was theirs. Mine was something else entirely. That week, my grandfather invited me to dinner. His house smelled of oak and books, his voice steady as he poured iced tea into 2 glasses. "I heard about the grocery store," he said, not unkindly. I nodded. "I didn't plan it. They showed up." "And you didn't run," he said, studying me. "That matters. You're not just surviving anymore, Rachel. You're standing." His words landed deeper than I expected. For so long, I'd been running from their control, their shame, their greed.
But now?
I was building something they could never touch. 2 months later, I signed the lease on a new apartment. Bigger, brighter, mine. The keys jingled in my palm as sunlight cut across the floor. I sat down in the empty living room, my voice echoing against bare walls, and I whispered to no one in particular. "This is what freedom looks like." Online, my sister still begged for donations. My parents' house sat unsold, marked down twice already. Their empire of control had turned into a pit they were digging with their own hands. And me? I wasn't watching anymore. I wasn't even checking. Because revenge wasn't about their downfall. It was about my rise. The poetic justice was simple. They tried to reduce me to unpaid labor, a servant in my own home. Now, I was untouchable, self-sufficient, out of their reach forever. The last message I ever sent them was 3 words: do not contact. And I meant it. What happens when silence is louder than revenge? They heard it in every empty chair, every unopened voicemail, every bill they couldn't pay. I heard it in the way my chest finally rose without weight, in the way my hands shook not from fear, but from possibility. Closure wasn't a door slamming shut. It was a window opening. And for the first time, I climbed out into the air, free.